Okay, Algebra 1. I'm on page 670. I'm going to look at number 4 here. It's a word problem with this cone that they gave us. My cone's not very good. You can see a better cone in your book on page 670. But it says the formula for the slant height. And just so we're all clear, the slant height is C. Okay, it's this like side that goes down the cone here. All right, so the slant height of C is this formula here. All right, where H is the height, which is this 10, right? The height goes right down the middle. And R is the radius of the base. So the circle on the bottom is the radius. Okay, so it says, what is the radius of the cone? Okay, so without really knowing anything about cones, right? Because we won't do that until you get into geometry. Without knowing anything about the cones, let's just stick to our formula. All right, so we know what C is, right? So we can plug that in, right? And we know what H is, right? They told us the H was the 10 here. Okay, so if we plug those two things in, really the only variable left would be R, right? So let's go ahead and do that, and let's see what it looks like. I have 14 equals radical symbol H squared. I'm going to do this in my head, guys. We know that 10 squared is 100, so I have 100 plus R squared. Okay, look at this equation. I'll bet most of you already know how to solve it, right? This is what we've been doing all week. We're just kind of doing it out of a word problem here. How do we get rid of the radical symbol? Well, we square it. And if we square one side of the equation, we better square this 14 as well, right? So go ahead and check my math, but I think 14 squared is 196. And when we square this, right, the symbol cancels. So we're just left with 100 plus R squared. Right? And I know it seems simple, but it kind of is, right? From here, we just subtract our 100. And this gives us 96 equals R squared. Okay? So how do we get rid of the square on the R, right? Because we don't want R squared. The question asks, what is the radius, right? What's regular R? Well, let's square root it. So use calculator here. Okay, square root of 96. We could simplify this, but we're not going to, because if you look at your answers in the book, they're in decimals, right? So we could, we know how to simplify that. We worked on that last week. But go ahead and take this to a decimal. I believe it comes out as 9.8, which looks like option H. Okay, it looks like it's H on this problem. Okay, so we're going to do one more together. Wow, that went quick. Hopefully it's as easy for you as it is here for me, the trained math teacher. So let's see. We're going to try number 3 now. We're going to go back and do number 3, which is on the same problem. You see a triangle. Let me draw this thing real quick. And this side is it's a binomial. 2 radical 2 plus radical 5. And down here I have another binomial, 3 radical 2 plus radical 5. And it says, what is the area? So we better know what the area formula of a triangle is. If you don't remember, area of a triangle is 1/2 length times width, which is probably what you learned. I'm going to use more geometric appropriate names here and call them base times height. Okay, so it's like length times width. All right, so what we need to do, obviously, is we need to take the base, which is this side, and the height, which is this side, and multiply them. Right? We're going to take this thing and multiply it by that thing. All right, so my question then is, how do we multiply two binomials, right? These are in parentheses. How do we times this by this? Well, you should have done this yesterday as well, right? With the FOIL method, right? We're going to FOIL these two things. All right, so I'm going to write them over here, and I'm going to use my FOIL practice. And I'm going to use my practice from last week on how to multiply radical symbols, right? Inside times inside, outside times outside. So FOIL says first, outside, inside, last. The first is this and this. Okay. What's 2? Here's the outside numbers. 2 and 3. 2 times 3 is 6. And then we have the radical number, right? We have radical 2 times radical 2, which is radical 4. And we know what radical 4 is. It's what? It's 2. So 6 times 2 is 12. All right, so our first is 12. Let's do the outside now, and I'll do it in a different color so it's easier for you to see. Outside is this thing and this thing. So the number outside here is a 1. So what's 2 times 1? That's 2. And 2 times 5 is radical 10. Now we're going to pause real quick, okay, and look in your book at the answers on this time for this problem. A, B, C, and D. These have radicals in their answers, right? Whereas problem 4 did not. Okay, problem 4 did not. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the radical symbol here because we need them in our answers. But real quick, is there a perfect square that goes into 10? No, there's not. So this is already simplified. So I'm going to write it down here as 2 plus radical 10. Let's look at the I, which is inside now. Inside is this number and this number. So the outside number is a 1. 1 times 3 is 3. And 5 times radical 2 is also radical 10, right? Those don't disappear. They're still there. All right, so let's see here. We can't simplify the radical 10, so we'll leave it there and write it like this. Now the last one we got to do, I'm going to go back to my black marker here. The last L is this and this, so it's radical 5 times radical 5, which is radical 25. And we know what the square root of 25 is. It's 5. Okay, let's look at our answers, folks. We have two numbers, right? We got a 5 and a 12. So what's 5 times 12? It's a 60. And now these two, oh, silly goose, man. We're not timesing, are we? We are adding. So 12 plus 5, sorry, should be 17. And let's add these. Remember, when we add radicals, do the insides change or the outsides? It's the outside. So what's 2 plus 3? It's 5. So I've got plus 5 radical 10. Okay. So at the moment, what we have done is we took this binomial times this binomial, right? Timesing, which was base times height. Don't forget, though, for triangles, we have to times it by 1/2, which is the same as dividing it by 2. Okay, so I'll put this over 2. And if you look again in your, right, times it by 1/2 is divided by 2. If you look again in the answers, none of them have fractions. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to divide these numbers. I'm going to say, to get decimals here, I'm going to say 17 divided by 2 is 8.5. And what's 5 divided by 2? It is 2.5. So I got 2.5 radical 10. It looks like this is the area of this triangle right there. All right. And it looks like option is, it looks like our answer is D here. Okay, it's D. Okay. If you have any questions, let me know. Guys, I'm going to have you try one problem for me. One problem today. If you have questions, please let me know. I want you to do go to page 667, and I want you to do number 10, all right? 667, number 10. Good luck.